So I've always mentioned to my clients that buying a house is about much more than putting a roof over your head or avoiding paying rent. It's about buying an asset that you or the people that you love can depend on to reach financial freedom and really create that generational wealth. If 77% of the total wealth of all Canadians is locked in real estate and 70% of global wealth is also locked in real estate, I think it's very important for you to understand how the market works and how you can successfully use this knowledge on your own real estate journey, so you don't lose out on amazing opportunities because of sensational headlines designed to make you scared, get you to click, and ultimately make advertising money for somebody somewhere, So if you can afford it, but you're still on the fence about getting into the Canadian real estate market, hear me out and make sure you leave your opinions in the comments so we can continue this conversation. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's go. I'm going to start this argument by explaining a phenomenon that has been at the core of the global economy since the dawn of capitalism, and it's called market cycles. Keeping it simple, the real estate market, just like the stock market or any other market, goes through two main periods of time. One period is called the buyer's market and the other period is called a seller's market. Now, the reason why it's called a buyer's market is because the seller must do everything they can to convince the buyer to buy their house. Sellers have to do things like reduce their prices or sell their homes at a loss because, among many other things, interest rates are high. Buyers are very reluctant to borrow money from their lender, and there's just generally a lot of fear because of those interest rates. This means that there are few buyers in the market and a lot of sellers in the market, aka a buyer scarcity. Now, in a seller's market, things are pretty much the opposite. Home prices are very high because sellers know that any buyer can walk into any bank and get a mortgage for a large amount of money and at a low interest rate. There's literally no incentive for the seller to reduce their prices, but there's a massive incentive for the buyer to offer more than what the seller is asking for. Because so many people can afford to get a good mortgage, buyers have to compete against each other and do everything they can to convince the seller to accept their offer to buy their house. There are usually too many buyers chasing the very few homes in the market, aka a seller scarcity. So now that we have a solid foundation, let's look at a real-life example of real estate market cycles. If you call this number right now, I can get you a brand new 4-bedroom, 3.5 bathroom, 1-car garage townhouse in the Greater London area for just $557,000. I've linked the video to this deal in the comment section below if you don't believe me. Now, at the height of the market in 2022, this same house was going for about $828,000. I know because someone I was advising at the time was trying very, very hard to get one, and because it was a seller's market, they put my guy on a 4-month wait list. They also politely asked him not to hold his breath because there were just too many people going for the few properties that the builder had. It's not that the house was worth $820,000 at the time, it's just that the law of demand and supply allowed the seller to charge that high of a price. If you are the seller, don't lie, you do the same thing. But today, the builder has just a few more of these properties to sell, but most buyers are afraid of the high interest rates and don't want to buy. And to entice buyers, the builder is giving away prices like a guaranteed 2.99% interest rate, or a brand new 2023 Ford Escape, or $40,000 off the listing price. So you can see that the seller is doing everything that they can to get the buyer to purchase from them. Now that you've seen how a seller behaves in two different market cycles, I'm going to describe the conditions that you, the buyer, has to operate under in both market cycles. Now, if you're a buyer in a buyer's market in Canada, realistically, you have a great opportunity to buy a home at a reasonable but not a low price. I say this because for the last decade and even beyond, home prices have only normalized or consistently increased but not crashed. The last actual Canadian real estate market crash happened in 1990, and because of a highly conservative fiscal and lending policy, a risk-averse and financially aware Canadian home buyer, and most importantly, a chronic house shortage and affordability crisis, Canada was able to largely weather the 2008 financial crisis, and Canada is doing the same right now in 2023. So if you're going into the market right now, your main issue is interest rates. But you also have some serious advantages like reasonable home prices, as I mentioned before, and opportunities to put conditions on your purchase offers to protect yourself against getting into trouble with your mortgage lender, or even buying a house you didn't even get a chance to inspect, among many other protections. You can put those things in your purchase offers just to make sure that you can get an opportunity to do your due diligence. You're also not competing with sometimes up to 50 other buyers to get the same largely overpriced house. You see, in a buyer's market, even though you're getting a high interest rate today, when interest rates drop and your mortgage term is up for renewal, you can always go to your lender and lower your interest rate. This way, you will have achieved the dream of successfully purchasing a home at a reasonable price and at a reasonable interest rate. Trying to get both at the same time in two different markets is practically impossible. Now, in a seller's market, absolutely nothing works in your favor as a buyer except the interest rate. Most of the time, the reality is that any condition you put on buying a home to protect your deposit or to protect your peace of mind is most likely going to get your offer to buy that home ignored by the seller, especially when most of the other buyers you're going to be competing with are putting in offers with no conditions and unrealistic prices. Quite a lot of buyers in this type of market even buy their homes sight unseen because of the massive amount of pressure to get something very quickly. And keeping in that vein, because of the hype, the fear of missing out, and the fact that everyone seems to be buying something, some buyers even end up ignoring their fundamentals entirely, focusing solely on the news of the day and taking action without a solid strategy to minimize the effects of the next market normalization, or if it happens again, the next market crash. So remember, you can go to your lender and you can lower your interest rates if you bought a house when the interest rates were high, but you cannot go to your lender to get any sort of compensation when the value of your house inevitably drops. I'm not saying that it's wrong to buy in a seller's market. There's a strategy for every market you find yourself in, and I can always help you regardless. But what do you think? Is this a good time for you to buy, or are you still waiting for interest rates to drop? See you in the next one.